So today's expert is Ankit from Thng. Interestingly, Ankit, we chose him as an expert very strongly because they're doing something very, very innovative in the influencer marketing space, which is around thinking of scaling influencer-led campaigns, right? And when we say scaling influencer-led campaigns, they're very, very closely around building a platform for doing that, right? So if you think of using Facebook, Google for running your performance campaigns, what if there was a solution for actually scaling that for influencers, right? And when they're wanting to do that as a platform level play, they think about how do you execute influencer-led strategies for even micro and nano influencers, right? And for that, how do you manage that relationship? How do you scale that? And again, Ankit will be an expert on delivering that. But this session is even more designed around stepping back and thinking of how and when you should design your influencer marketing strategy and how should you go about that process. Ankit, he has been an expert, so they've run multiple influencer campaigns via their platform for larger brands. Many of them are D2C centric also. And then he has been having a history in social. So if you check out his LinkedIn profile from 2012, he's already been in social media throughout, right? And before Thing, he's been leading social at Isobar and Digitas and other really like large agencies specifically as that function. So from a subject matter expertise, he literally the go-to person to discuss this with. As you all know, influence is a very debatable topic, and how do we measure, how do we manage, and we keep on having this interaction with multiple experts. And I think one expert who's been doing this in and out would be the right person to sort of get your clarity on that thought. So that being said, welcome Ankit. We're really, really excited to have you. So maybe if you can just have a round of applause for like a video thing for Ankit. That's our way to thank you. But Ankit, the stage is yours. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You guys can hear me, right? Super. So guys, Sharad is just being too humble. I'm just one of you trying to, kind of do something. Being a founder, I understand the kind of challenges you guys would have been going through. Of course, the category is different. I mean, you guys have a lot more challenges as compared to me. But yeah, I mean, thankfully or fortunately, unfortunately, I've been in this space for a while, and I have worked with a couple of guys in the past. So we make it very, very interactive. We speak about my learnings in the past. We speak about what I think we should be doing. In fact, Sharad has shared an Excel sheet with me where you guys have answered or rather put a couple of queries and put your past experiences about influencer marketing. What I've seen there is most of you who have tried influencer marketing have either not been able to understand the ROI out of it, or have not been able to understand how to go about it properly in terms of finding the right influencers, or understanding whether sales can be driven, or if engagements can be driven or not. And a couple of you who have not tried have said you guys would love to try, but do not know what is the structured process of going forward, or how to go about it actually. So we would cover all those aspects, but we'd also go slightly advanced and be able to understand why influencer marketing in the first go, or how do you design an influencer marketing campaign before jumping onto whether we should pick up person A or person B, or whether we should have the outcome as the engagements or the reach or sales, or some sort of other conversion which should be happening, say link clicks or app downloads or something like that. In your case, of course, it would be more sales driven. So we'd step back slightly and we try to understand why and how we should do it, and then move forward towards how do we kind of get this done. So by the end of this session, you guys would have a very clear idea of how should you go about influencer marketing. You would have a couple of insights, rather a lot of insights, in terms of what can be done, and this is from various perspectives. So we have designed this entire course or this entire workshop based on the categories that you come from. So the kind of brands that we'd be working with would be very, very close to your category. So by the end of this exercise, you would have a very clear viewpoint about what should be done and what should not be done. So that's how it is supposed to be. I will quickly share my screen, take you through what the format is, and what you guys should be expecting in the next 1.5 or maybe 2 hours. That being said, then we can start with the entire workshop. So you guys can see the screen. Super. So yeah, while I was asked to do a session on influencer marketing, I've deliberately not written influencer marketing here, because essentially influencers are people, and that's what we have to understand at the base of it. So going forward, we try to stay away from using the term influencer. We try to use the word creator, try to use the word people as compared to using influencer, because of two reasons actually. One, influencer is a very, very abused word, specifically in the Indian context, and two, because we still don't know who to call an influencer, who not to call an influencer. So essentially, influencers are a subset of creators. So we'd say creators, or we'd say people, and these people can be your actual users, or can be your potential users, or can be a lot of other people. So before we jump into that, while Sharad has spoken about me, quick background about me. I've been in this industry for about 13, 14 odd years. I've been doing social media marketing since the good old Orkut days, when Facebook was still trying to penetrate in the Indian context. Worked with various brands, and this is like a very quick slide that I've put in last night, based on whatever the recent brands that I've worked with. So these brands, you can see, would vary from bigger guys like Savlons and Charmisses of the world, to the new guys like CoinDCX and CoinSwitchBase, to a lot of startups like Mfine, Pokerbazi, OnePlus. Of course, there have been a lot of D2C brands as well that we've been working with. In fact, a couple of you guys from this cohort also I have interacted with in the past. But that's been me, and I've worked across different agencies. Then I went to the UK. I was working with this company called the News Corp. I was leading a couple of things for the newspapers called The Sun and The Times. And this is essentially that entrepreneurship thing kind of came into me, and I decided to come back and start with Do Your Thing. So that's like a very quick background about me. We'd want to keep it as conversational as possible. So at any given point in time, if there's any question, even now, if you want to understand anything about me, please do not hesitate to ask. Please just go ahead and ask the question, and we try to answer that right away. In terms of the agenda, so there's a framework that I've been introducing to you, which will take about 20 minutes. And this framework is essentially the exercise that we'd be doing in the later part of the workshop as well. Once we have introduced the framework, once I've told you about what this framework looks like, we would divide the entire the entire cohort into 4 groups. And this is random selection. There is no science behind it, provided I don't know if Zoom follows any science or not, but we're just following random selection from the Zoom's functionality. We have 4 groups. The first group, so every group would be given a brand to play around with and to think about from an influencer marketing perspective. So group 1 would have something called as Natura Organic Farms, and in the subsequent slides I will give you some more details about that brand. You feel like you're free to imagine a lot of other details which you might not have. So there would be a base detail which would be given to you for a particular brand. For example, Natural Organic Farms is, say, a brand which is into organic farming, does a lot of new age ghee, milk, eggs, those kind of things. And that description I would give you. But then beyond that, you're free to imagine and kind of put in details based on what your past experiences have been. So there's Natural Organic Farms. The second group would be getting something called Sway. I would tell you what is it all about. Then there's Ojas Skincare. The fourth one is Oral Care Company. And there's one which we have kept optional, which is Artisanal Tea Company. And once we get into the slide, we'll see if we have to use it or not, but 99% would not be using it. Now, again, just to give you a quick context, all of these brands are hypothetical brands and have been designed based on the categories that you guys belong to. So these have been originated based on the kind of stuff that you have been trying to do in the actual world. Now, once you get into the breakout rooms, you would get to do a couple of things based on the framework that I'd explained. So you'd have to define the business objective. You'd get 10 minutes, and all of you together, you can decide on one particular person will be sharing the screen and kind of putting in the things together, but you have to collectively brainstorm and come up with the business objective, come up with the current situation for that particular brand, then flip that, and I'll explain what all this means in the subsequent slides, but flip that and come up with a what if situation. And then once all of this is done, we'd again come back together in the common room, and we would distill all the thoughts that we have come up with, and we would map them on a scale which would help them understand which ideas or which thoughts or which influencer marketing campaigns you should be going ahead with immediately, and which ones you should be parking for now, and which ones are not just good enough to be thought about at all. So that's the combined agenda for the breakout room. And then towards the end, we'll have about 10 minutes of question and answers. But just in case, like I said, If there's any question in between, feel free to ask. While you guys in the breakout room, I would keep on jumping in between the breakout rooms just to see if there's any problem or if there's any question or there's any place where you're getting stuck. I'm more than happy to help you guys out there so that there's like kind of it flows seamlessly. That's what the agenda is. Any particular question on this agenda as of now? Anything that is not understood? Okay. Super. So let's look at what we're trying to do. This entire framework that I'll be taking you through is based on a philosophy of what if. Now, it might sound like a very, very simple question, but the entire influencer marketing campaigns that generally most of the bigger organizations would do would be decided based on this what if philosophy. Now, what this does is it takes you back a step and takes you makes you think about why you should be doing influencer marketing. Okay, and then flip it to what if this would have happened. So this is more like an ideal scenario, the ideal case that I want you guys to think about. So for example, say there's a brand that I have which is called Decaf. Now Decaf is a coffee brand which serves decaf coffee in the Indian context. Okay, now there are various problems that this particular brand would be facing, but what we want you to think about is, and this is just an example that I'm giving you, you'd have to think about it on the brand that you'd be given. Essentially what you need to do is you need to flip the current situation into an ideal situation which you think can be achieved via influencer marketing, or for that matter via any other marketing effort. Okay, now essentially what this does is it makes you stand in a situation which you want as an outcome, and then makes you understand how to achieve this outcome as compared to going the other way around of saying, okay, I would hire 10 influencers and see what is it that they're giving me, or I would hire 50 influencers from like based on my whims and fancies or based on what my marketing agency is telling me, and then essentially go about it and see what is it that they're giving me. So that's the philosophy that we'll be following, and I'll obviously talk about this philosophy in detail in the subsequent slides. The three critical pillars to the exercise that we'll be doing today. The first one would be define. Define is a very, very important part of this entire philosophy, of this entire exercise. We, including me, all of us have this habit of defining, or rather taking this particular step very, very lightly. But this is the most crucial step. You'd have to define the business challenge. And this has to be like simple, cruxed. It cannot be my business challenge is I'm not getting enough sales. So those, because sales are essentially an outcome of some other challenge that you might be following, and we'd speak about it in the subsequent slides, of course. Once you've defined the business challenge, we would decipher the current situation for that particular brand, and in defining this current situation, we would take different perspectives. Under those perspectives, I've given some cues, and we'd speak about those cues. Essentially, the Excel sheets that you've gotten are the cues that you would be filling in for the particular brand that you'd be working upon. And the third piece to this would be discovering what if or what if this what is situation is changed into an ideal scenario. So this is the pillar, this is the process that we'll be following going forward for the set of brands that we'll be working with. Now let's look at these pieces in detail. Okay, so I've already spoken about defining the objective, and I'll speak about what that objective is supposed to look like. I'll also give you an example of what this objective can be for a particular hypothetical brand, which is Decaf in this case. When you speak about deciphering, or when you speak about doing the what is the current situation, we would take it from 5 different perspectives. The first one would be cultural perspective. So what is the cultural significance of the product? And there can be various examples. And of course, I would give you some examples in the subsequent slides. The second would be enemy. Enemy is your competitors, essentially. The third one would be the audience that you're speaking about. What is the current situation with the audience? The fourth one would be your brand. Where does the brand stand? What does the brand stand for? And the fifth one is what is happening within the category. So we would define the current situation based on these 5 points, and then flip all of this into, again, the ideal situation that we would want, again, based on the same 5 points that you have spoken about, right? Once we have these, we would start to distill them and plot them on a simple graph. If you see the graph, the top right quadrant is what we are ideally supposed to look at. So influencer marketing campaigns, which are simple but revolutionary. We can also look at the bottom right quadrant, which is the complex yet revolutionary, but those would be the ones that you would have to plan for, considering the campaigns would be slightly complex and would need some time to be planned. The left bottom quadrant is something that we try to avoid at all. We don't want complex campaigns which do not move the needle. And the top ones, of course, simple yet evolutionary, something that you can do in parallel. So the hero campaigns would be the top right quadrant. In parallel campaigns can be the top left quadrants. And campaigns which are to be planned for can be the bottom right. The bottom left is something that you try to avoid. Essentially, once you have plotted, we decide which ones we'd want to go ahead with and which ones we'd want to avoid. So essentially, by the time you end this workshop, by the time we finish this workshop, you would have a set of influencer marketing campaigns done for the set of brand that you'd be working for and plotted on this particular graph or on this particular scale. And then once you go back, you can do the same exercise with your own brand and be able to understand and identify the same or similar campaigns from the influencer marketing perspective and be able to take that forward with your own team. So that's the process in detail, which we'll be taking about. Let's look at the first step, which is defining. So defining is essentially something that you have to start with the end. So understand what is it that you'd want to do and understand what is the challenge that you're facing in terms of doing that. Okay. And I'll give you a hypothetical example about this brand called Decaf. Now, Decaf is a coffee brand, like I said, premium brand, going towards millennials, slightly expensive in nature, and they do decaf coffee, as the name suggests. Now, the end game that they would want is they would want the entire Indian subcontinent or everybody in India to be able to at least known with the brand or to be able to consume decaf brand. That's the entire end game that we'd want to go. Now, what are the challenges that we are facing if we have to achieve this end game? Okay. Now, in this case, specifically, the challenge can be that there is no understandings of the benefit of decaf coffee in the Indian context. Okay, that can be one challenge. There are various challenges that can be there. So there can be another challenge, which is, let's say, my supply chain is broken. I can't fix that. Or there can be another challenge, which is, say, I'm not able to produce, or rather my backend supply chain is broken, where I'm not able to procure the right beans with which I'm supposed to procure the coffee. But here in this case, what we are supposed to think about is challenges which can be fixed using influencer marketing or using marketing. So supply chain challenges cannot be fixed by influencer marketing for sure, right? So you're supposed to think about challenges which marketing can solve, which in this case is understanding or rather low/nil understanding of the benefits of decaf coffee. Okay. When you are defining the business challenge, keep a couple of points in mind. One, it is supposed to be extremely simple and extremely focused. Okay. Like I said, no increasing in sales kind of challenges or no saying that my supply chain is broken. So keep it simple, keep it focused, keep it within the realm that marketing can solve or influencer marketing can solve, right? Now, once you have defined the business challenge, we'd start with the deciphering phase. Now, this one's extremely important, guys. Please pay some attention here. Just in case if there's any question, any query, please stop me right there and then I'll be able to help you out, okay? The key here is the answer is out there. You are not supposed to reinvent the wheel. You're not supposed to do rocket science here. We're not creating Tesla, okay? Answer is out there. You have to just think about it and understand what is it that I'm supposed to pick. I'll give you a couple of examples, okay? What you need to do is you need to assess the what is situation and look for insights, okay? Now, there is a difference between an insight and an observation, okay? I'll give you the difference. So for example, an observation is that India is a chai country. That's an observation. The insight is because historically Britishers used to rule India and they had the habit of having tea in the morning and in the evening, and hence India became a chai country. That's an insight. So it has been going on for a very, very long time, because of which we became a chai country. So you need to look at insights. Insights would come from observations, but you need to understand what is the base thought, what is the reason behind that observation to be happening, okay? And that's where the deciphering piece is coming into play. Now, deciphering would happen on 5 parameters, like I said. So I just hang on, I think. Yeah, okay. So deciphering would happen on 5 parameters, which is culture, brand, audience, category, enemy, okay? Now, if you see this slide, and this is something that you would have access to in the Excel sheet, huh? If you see this slide, what you have is under each list, you have certain cues. These are the cues that you need to follow for the brand that you would be given. Okay. One quick piece of advice here, considering we have limited time, and ideally this is supposed to be a longer workshop. What you can do is you do not necessarily have to fill in all the answers. Whatever you can find answers to, you can start filling those, and we'll move on with what you have in hand. So do not get boggled down by writing answers, or rather writing your thoughts for every particular point. Instead, try to cover all the categories. So even if you do one in culture, two in brand, one in audience, two in category, and say a couple in enemy, it is absolutely fine. But try to complete the entire 5 parameters as compared to completing one parameter and leaving the rest of those. Okay. And I'll give you an example of what it means. So under the culture piece, say, what is the cultural significance of your brand / service? Now, what you need to understand here is whatever you're producing as a brand, is there a cultural significance that you can relate the brand to? Again, giving an example, when I speak about decaf coffee, the cultural significance is India is a chai country. And hence, coffee is not something which is consumed at scale or at large. Okay. That's a cultural significance. Another cultural significance can be in youth within India specifically. Coffee is considered to be something where you would, let's say, go out and sit with friends and have a conversation around. So coffees are occasions. Coffees are not supposed to be done at home like a morning, evening kind of thing. And this is at scale kind of scenario, right? So those are the cultural significances that you'd have to think about. I'll give you another example. So for example, if you see the second one, what are some of the key trends that are happening in the society as a whole and have a potential influence on your audience? Now, again, taking the example of decaf is a coffee which is decaffed, and of course, it is projected towards people who are slightly towards fitness because decaf has a lot of benefits as compared to normal coffee. Now, the trend which is happening in the Indian context is you have a lot of chai lovers, and there's fitness being implemented or fitness being taken up very, very seriously, especially in the target audience that we're speaking about. So for chai lovers, you have a fitter option or healthier option, which is green tea. But for coffee lovers, there's nothing called as a decaf coffee yet available in the market, right? So that's one of the key trends that you can pick up for this particular brand that I'm speaking about, right? So what you need to do is you need to think about these points and you need to think about your particular brand and understand what is it that you can portray here, right? Again, giving you a couple of more examples. So say the second point under brand, it says, what business do we believe we are in? Now, one answer can be, we are in the business of providing decaf coffee. The other example or the other flip side to this can be, we are in the business of providing a healthier option to coffee lovers. This can then be extended to a lot more products as compared to just a decaf coffee, right? So you'd have to understand these nuances and understand where do you belong as a brand, okay? Again, there are a whole lot of points here. These are to give you cues and not necessarily for you to be followed like literally to the T. Whatever you cannot think about, I'd suggest move on because there's limited time that we are looking at. Any particular question on this slide? Anything that you did not understand, anybody? Or anything you'd want me to kind of detail out? We good? Okay.
Maybe Ankit, just as like an example, like you give for culture and brand, can you just go one example for this decaf for audience category? Yeah. Yes.
Sure. So let's look at the third one, which is let's say audience. Now, audience is fairly simple. Who do we currently attract? In the case of decaf coffee, we're looking at slightly fancy, slightly expensive options. So we're looking at millennials, tier 1 cities, people who are very well versed with this kind of lifestyle that we're looking at. So this can be detailed out very, very easily. So that's a simple one actually under the audience bit. Speak about category. How does the category sell itself? In this case, the category is very, very new. So there's typically nothing. The only category that would belong here is, let's say, the Starbucks and coffee days of the world, where you have to go to a particular place and ask or rather order for decaf coffee. Okay, or the second can be the category selling itself via Zomatos and Swiggies of the world, right? So that's one on the category bit. Let me just look at this last question. What is the alternative, right? Again, the same question answered in a very similar format. The alternative is, let's say, your Starbucks and baristas and coffee days and Costas of the world. Those are the only guys. So essentially, you see, there's a very, very important insight which can come from here. There is nobody in the industry which is doing at-home decaf coffee. So maybe that's something that you can pick up, and that's something that we can kind of start to portray via influencers, right? So these are the kind of things that you need to do under each list. Does that make sense? Okay. So I'll move forward to the third one. Now, once we have defined the what is the current situation, like I said, we have to now flip it to what if. Okay. And when you try to flip it to what if, try to make a solution out of it. Just a minute back, I gave you an example of decaf coffee being available at home. Now, that's a solution. This is not a marketing gimmick, right? So think about solutions rather than just thinking what can an influencer say about me or what can an influencer promote me as. Okay, so this is what you need to do. Similar or the same categories that you would have, whatever you had thought about in the earlier slide, you have to flip it here. For example, in the first case, again, I'll give you an example. Under culture, you said, what if we create a movement around an existing cultural trend? I told you the cultural trend is that India is a very chai country. And historically, we have seen a lot of memes and a lot of, chai lover kind of things coming out of it. What if we create a movement around being a coffee lover? Okay. And now think about how can this movement be created and how can influencers help you in creating this movement. Maybe say 10 creators who have been historically chai lovers can start speaking about turning into a coffee lover because of the decaf coffee and because of the benefits that I'm getting, right? So that's one flip that you can do. What if this happens? Again, the same thing that we can do on a couple of other pieces. Say, what if we create a new cultural trend? Again, very, very similar to what I'm trying to tell you here. Chai has been a cultural trend, but say if you're speaking about decaf coffee, what if we create a cultural trend of being, or rather of choosing a healthier option when we are going for coffee, right? What if we can do that? And again, then we'd come to how do we, right? Or how do we get it executed? Similarly, say under the brand side, if you say, what if we create a new source of business for an existing product? Like I said, this is something that I spoke about in the last slide as well. Say if as a brand, my business is to be able to provide a healthier option for coffee lovers, then I can have a lot of other products being included in the same, because I'm suddenly not just selling decaf coffee, but I'm selling a lifestyle to these guys, right? So what if we do a launch? Maybe it can be like it doesn't have to be something which, or other line of product which has to be followed through. It can be like a limited edition sort of thing which you can do in conjugation with an influencer and say, okay, this particular piece we are launching because this influencer believes in this and we thought it would be a good thing, right? So think about it from that perspective. You do not have to reinvent your business. You do not have to get into a new line of business for sure, right? Under the audience bit, again, what if we create something that changes people's perception / behavior with regard to the subject or problem? Now, again, in this case, the problem is people do not know about the benefits of decaf coffee. Okay, how do we change that perception? Now, again, think about what if I have 10 people who are in the fitness category speaking about the problems associated with coffee drinking in the morning and in the evening, or maybe coffee drinking with empty stomach, and hence decaf coffee comes to the rescue. Like, what if we can do something like that, right? So you'd have to think in that perspective, and you'd have to again map those pieces that you had written in the previous slide onto this particular slide. So this slide is nothing but switching or flipping what you had already thought about in the previous slide. Okay, and again, these whatever you see are just cues for you. You can think about these cues, or you can kind of ignore them if you think there's one or other multiple cues which do not, rather, or not applicable for you. You can very well skip those cues and do whatever you think is good enough for you. Make sense? Okay, any confusion? No, we're good. Cool. Then I'd move forward. So once we have done the discovery, we come on the distill, and this is something that we would be looking at again once we come back to the common room. So just after this, we would start to break out in different rooms. All of you would have one particular brand that you would have to work upon, and in the next slide, I will tell you, or I'll give you the details about that brand. You would have to follow this exercise of doing or defining the business challenge, then discovering, which is designing the current situation on those 5 parameters, and then flipping that to understand what kind of campaigns you can do with the influencers that you rather think of working with. Okay, once you come back, we would think about those narratives. You would listen to those narratives, why a particular campaign, what is the insight that you have picked up, and then accordingly you would start to put them here. Again, to give you a couple of examples, say if you have to introduce a new product line, okay, you would have to put in a lot of efforts. I mean, with 10 influencers, you can't introduce a new product line. So it would fall somewhere in the complex category where you would have, say, about 500, 600, maybe 1,000 people talking about the new product line that you're that you're launching. Okay. But it definitely would be revolutionary because it would put you in a different light altogether. So maybe that's something that you need to plan about. You can't do that right away. For example, say decaf coffee tomorrow starts with a new product line, which is, let's say, kind of a sachet, which you can open at home, just put it in the water in the morning, and there you go, boom, decaf coffee ready for you, right? Now, that's a new product line in itself, which needs a lot of back calculations, understanding how the product would be made, how would be marketing that. So this is something that you need to plan on. So a complex, but a revolutionary idea, right? But let's say if you think about just educating the world on the benefits of decaf coffee, now that's a simple idea. And that's definitely revolutionary because then people would understand why decaf is good for them, right? And that's how we would plot these ideas on this particular graph, and we would see which ones you should be picking up as a brand right away and which ones you would be, or rather should be planning for. Does that make sense? Any question, any comment, anything? Good? Okay, I'll move forward then. Now, immediately after this, we go into the breakout rooms. You'll be assigned your groups. So there are 4 groups, 1, 2, 3, 4. The first group would have Natura Organic Farms as the brand. This brand is an organic farming brand, which is selling ghee, jaggery, chawanprash, sattu, and a lot of other things. And is following the newer regenerative farming methods. That's the brand. That's what it does. Now, like I said, you are free to assume a lot of things around this brand. So you are free to assume whether it's a premium brand, you're free to assume whether it's a massy brand, you're free to assume whether it's a very niche brand, free to assume whether the supply chain is pan-India or is it restricted to a geography. That's something you as a group can decide upon while you're defining the business challenge. So we have not defined that for you. I'd leave that up to you guys to be able to put the hands and legs around this. Group 2 would get Sway. Sway is a fashionable and fun innerwear for the young millennials. Okay, now this is something like, this is a category which actually has been booming really, really well in the Indian context. Again, you are free to choose whether it's an online only brand or is it available on different marketplaces as well. What is the price range? Blah, 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 blah. Okay, you can kind of decide all of that. Group 3 gets Ojas skincare. And they're leveraging farm to face luxury skincare. So this, obviously the name says it's a luxury skincare brand, 100% natural, cruelty free. You can decide upon other things. The fourth one is Oral Care Company. It's promoting dental hygiene and health. What you need to take care of here is electronic toothbrushes with charcoal based bristles. So it's a very tech savvy kind of brand. Maybe you can think about using AI algorithms and, kind of putting in meters around how clean are your teeth, like all of those details you can put in with your imagination. And these are the 4 brands that we'll be working with: Group 1, Group 2, Group 3, Group 4. You would get 10 minutes to define the business objective, 15 minutes to decipher the current situation, which is all those parameters, 15 minutes to do the what if, and another 15 minutes for distillation and mapping. Okay, deciding actually you can do along with distillation and mapping. So you can think about which ones are good ideas, which ones are bad ideas based on the structure that I've shown you, and then we'll come together and we'll actually listen to the narrative and put them, or rather plot them there. First thoughts, good insights coming in. I mean, I was kind of roaming around the rooms and there's some really, really good insights that I could hear on. So what do you guys think?
Yeah, like quite it was fun to learn more about a different industry altogether. It makes you think more compared to what you're doing currently and how you're going to do it for a different product altogether. And also like how influencer marketing has worked, like from earlier days to now, what is the traction, and understanding more like how we can leverage it. So yeah, good.
Yes. So I'm glad to hear that. So what we now do is we'd I'd share my screen. We'd go back to that graph that we saw initially. We'd start group wise and we do one campaign per group. So the first group would give me one campaign which they think is the best campaign that they've cracked. Give me the entire narrative behind it. What is the story? What was the insight? Why did you think that particular campaign? How did you flip it, or what did you flip it to? And what exactly are you planning to do? Okay, and then we'd start to plot those. So we do one campaign each group, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then if time permits, we come back for more campaigns, because I'm just being mindful of the time, because we just have 15 minutes left, and I'd want to give you some time for question answers as well. So group 1, your chance. What was the product? Just refresh the memory on the product and just go on. So one of you can start with the narrative. What was the insight, and then tell us what the campaign was.
Arun, you have the notes. You want to go ahead?
So group 1 is natural organic farms. So who was part of that? Yes.
Yeah. So So in terms, I mean, we had like a few campaign ideas. So I mean, in terms of keeping it simple and evolutionary. So I mean, we're talking about organic products and stuff. So something which kind of gives back to the farmers. We're trying to build in transparency between farm to fork. So, and obviously respecting farmers and stuff. So we were thinking something in those lines. And at the same time, like an offline plug where we create experiential centers, or let's say dedicated farms where people can come and visit, and kind of see what's in action and stuff. So there's like an online and offline kind of thing over here. I mean, so this is like an overview of what we kind of came up with. Anything to add on, Gaurav? Please do if I'm missed on. But yeah.
Sure. No, I think we came up with a couple of, smaller campaigns. We saw that a lot of people doing it were like, maybe talking about the stories of farmers, or talking about customer testimonials, and making them sort of the heroes or the influencers in that case. And kind of as we were signing off, Arjun had an interesting idea where we said, maybe we bring those two together, where customers are in some sense interacting with the farmers. And that could be an entire campaign in itself, which may be a little bit more on the complex, but I mean, if you're using sort of digital technology, you could just have it simple and revolutionary, I guess. So it's just kind of finding a bridge between those two worlds and bridging that transparency piece.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So couldn't agree more. This would belong to the simple and revolutionary quadrant, and that's absolutely very well said. Now, I just wanted to think about how do you do it with the influencers. So think about the kind of influencers you would need. Think about how would you make the farmers the influencers. Think about the kind of content which can flow in. Now, suddenly, what you'd realize is there are a lot of thoughts which would start to flow in automatically, and you'd know all the questions that you generally had. Right? When you're thinking about an influencer marketing campaign, all of those questions would start to get answered right away. So the first question, the kind of influencers you need people who are close to the farmers, who speak about organic stuff, who are maybe, people who have been like doing something like this in the past, those kind of people. The kind of content you need, the kind of content has to be absolutely transparent. So maybe handheld, hand-shot videos about how this entire thing works, how your factory works, how do you make the product, how do you tell the world about why this particular product is organic, and stuff like that. It can be fam trips with these guys, so you can have people to come to the factories, the online offline connect that you spoke about, right? Now, once you have decided on the kind of people you'd need and the kind of content you would want, then think about the outcome that you're looking at. The outcome here in that case would be how many people have started believing in the fact that what you guys say is what you guys do, right? So maybe a post-campaign survey about what do you feel about the product, or what do you feel about the brand? Do you think, there can be various questions that you can ask these guys. Do you think what we're saying is the truth, or do you still believe there's a problem somewhere, or do you still believe there's something which is not absolutely transparent as we wanted to do, right? Now think about this as an influencer marketing campaign, and you suddenly would know what exactly you want to do, the kind of people you need, the kind of content you need, and what is the outcome that you're expecting, as compared to saying I need 5 influencers with X number of reach or Y number of engagements. Break those. Do not go by those numbers, right? Okay, that's a good one, guys. That's a real good one. Group second, do you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. Can you just guide me what all I need to share in particular, because we had a very long discussion. starting from defining the brand and defining the product benefits, the functionality, and then working around the culture, right? Like answering all of the questions that were there. And then later on, like but in the final part, we discussed what works and how we can leverage this for uh, brand awareness. And we like in the last part, we also discussed how we can sort of make it a guided journey across the funnel where we first work on the awareness bit, and then using other tools we sort of work on getting the audience registered on the website through different means. And we also discussed like a very tech friendly idea of how Lenskart sort of does 3D modeling. So we thought of doing that with Innerwear, that people could try it out while on the website. And
Right. So yes, don't get into the specifics. Don't get into the mechanisms in terms of So the entire lens card idea that you spoke about. That's one of the ways or one of the mediums of doing things. Okay. Just go on with your story. What is the brand? What was the challenge that you're trying to solve? What is it that you would want to do? What is the campaign all about? And then we try to map it somewhere. Don't get into the specifics of what the medium looks like or where are you planning to do what. We get into that.
Sure. So in terms of brand, it's a women-centric millennial innerwear brand. There is not much conversation around, buying bras, or it's a very hush topic. So talking about, women's innerwear, and we came up with the tagline that out your innerwear, right? So creating more like for men's category, there has been still a lot of, it has become a style statement, like with jockeys, marketing efforts, and everyone. But for women, it hasn't been so strong. So sort of taking that opportunity in cultural aspect, and also with respect to what we are offering in terms of the product. So that's largely
Super. Super. So I put this in the bottom quadrant. Yash, the only reason being you're trying to break something which is culturally ingrained in all of us. So not speaking about buying bras or not speaking about buying innerwear from a female perspective is something that has been ingrained within all of us for a very, very long time. But if you can break this, it's a revolution in the progress. Okay, it's something that people would appreciate. And I guess I'm not sure, one of the groups I overheard about Bliss Club, when they spoke about body positivity and spoke about how those guys are trying to do this. So it's actually one of those things which they are also facing. It is going against the culture. So would take like you have to plan this.
I think, Ankit, I would like to add one more thing. We also kind of moved to the direction where we had that product more in a format where we can use it in multifunctional manner. Like, you can use it in your gym, you can use it in your running, you can use it in your thing. That makes it more open, comfortable, community-wise, easily reachable, and the influencer-wise workable. So I think we were in that position, and then by the end we also thought that we would do that. And in the end we moved towards that. So that is the direction in the end, which would be not that complex, yet make it more something which is non-tapped, in my opinion, which is multifunctional, yet comfort wise breathable. If it's breathable in your gym, it's breathable throughout the day, and at the same time it's fun and for the millennials. So it will be designed perspective wise, it will be much more creative, which will make them use it in the different forms, like saris also these days people are using. So making it more comfortable, yet different. So
Super. So if that's the direction that you're looking at, then we put it in the left top quadrant. The only reason being, what you're speaking about is not actually breaking the cultural shackles, but you're trying to tell them that there's something which is breathable. There's something like a material which is better for you to wear while going to the gym, or while going to, let's say, some other place where you are very comfortable, very flexible. So those are the things that you're trying to communicate. Again, now think about how would you do this with very people or different kind of people.
Through culture, one of the example that we thought was that different gym, I don't know what, please correct me guys, this was cult
Cult fit we
yeah,
talked
cult fit.
about, yes,
Yeah,
because
through
how
different,
they're doing it with their trainers, and even the people who are
yes,
trainers are the influencer. So instead of marketing
Super.
to the other people, we could just do it. And instead, these guys came out with the idea that we can directly tell cult fit and have them as a brand partner.
brand collaboration. Yeah,
Bang on.
brand collaboration.
Because that's
Bang on.
like all the athleisure wear also, which is coming. That's our target, like, breathable, comfortable wear throughout the day. You don't just need to have different wears at different times.
Correct.
That's really well put. I think that's what we wanted as an outcome of this exercise. So it's a good one, guys, and very well put in terms of how do you want to move forward. Again, the same point. The moment you know what is it that you'd want to do, you'd have all those questions already answered. The kind of people you need the trainers from CultFit or maybe some other platform. The platform is irrespective. It can be some other gym, but essentially you're looking at people who are working out, let's say at least once in a day or maybe twice a day. And then you're kind of replicating that and telling the world that this is something that you can do as well with our innerwear, which is absolutely soft and very, very useful and stuff like that. So
we came up with a
bang on.
campaign. So we came up with a campaign like open your innerwear, like make it more comfortable. So combining the two. That was the whole idea. Make it more culturally, because which is unspoken of, people are not open about. So the gym people who who are eventually working out with tens of people throughout the day, wearing that and being comfortable in it, and then that kind of creates a chain effect for people to be able to create brand awareness and at the same time conversion as well. So this kind of works in both of it. Yeah.
Super makes sense.
Thanks.
If you're not attacking the culture, then this is where it would belong, and it's a very, very good thought. You can start something like this right away, like literally right away. You don't have to wait. So good one there. I'm just being mindful of the time. Sharath, can we extend for 10 more minutes from 3:30? That's a possibility.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm available.
10 minutes, no problem. Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, we're good. Okay. All right. Group 3. Let's hear you out.
So our brand was Ojas Skincare. So leveraging farm to face luxury skincare, 100% natural, cruelty free. We spoke a lot about the brand values itself, and we kind of took a different approach to it. One of the key campaigns or directions that we thought about was regarding transparency and grassroots farmer level. But I'm going to take another example because I think one of the brands has already spoken about farms, so I'll just take something else. So the second idea that I think we all really enjoyed was inclusivity being a large social trend right now. And I think in the skincare space, it's largely untapped, especially at scale. So this becomes a product challenge as well, but largely a communication challenge. So the brand itself would be creating skincare for every gender. So skincare for everybody, basically. And so this is, I think a lot of and being in this luxury skincare space, we saw our key competitors being brands like Forest Essentials, Kama Ayurveda, and we don't see anybody really talking about these issues. And inclusivity is becoming a very important talking point right now socially.
Ankit, sorry, Shivani, one second. Ankit, you put this here. You have put it in simple, and we thought it was really complex because speaking about how fair and lovely a brand like Imami couldn't get a fair and handsome to work, so it's complex to get the men to work. So yeah, we have put it in complex. So since we put it in simple, I thought, is it actually that simple? But it's okay.
No, it has to be complex.
This is exactly, we thought it would be complex and evolutionary because the brand itself is evolving to encompass all these different people who are non-conforming to any kind of stereotype in terms of gender, etc. So we thought that opens up this entire segment that's been largely untapped by other brands, and that gives us a lot of, in terms of collaborations, in terms of really executing this campaign. It opens up a lot of avenues for us because there are a lot of influencers in this space right now who have very targeted audiences who really care about what they have to say, right? These are not just your run-of-the-mill influencers. They are spreading a social message and they really believe in their cause. And so those are people we thought we would definitely go after for a campaign like this. And also from the man-woman perspective, also we thought husband and wife jodis have many accounts nowadays, and they create really cute content. A lot of people follow them. They really care about what they have to say. So things like how do they bring these products into their daily routines is something we also spoke about. Yeah,
this is super, guys. You have just detailed out an entire influencer marketing strategy for this particular brand, and that's just really good. This is what 1.5 hours of your effort.
Ankit, we have one more point.
yeah.
Not over.
Go on, please. All yours.
No, so one more campaign that we really loved was regarding like Dadi Nani sort of route, where because skincare in Indian culture is so ingrained, your home remedies and things like that. So bringing influencers to bring in the elders in their families to be a part of this campaign is another different route that we really thought of.
That's also a good one. In fact, this can be something that you can immediately start to do. That's falling in the simple and evolutionary category, because again, in the skincare category, you do speak about haldi and chandan and a lot of other things which have been spoken about. So, so that's more like a simple go-to which can be started or activated in just a week's time. While this definitely would need some planning, but has like real good outcomes which can be planned. So good stuff there.
Thought about just the thing of compassion in skincare has been something that we've not seen very often being communicated by the larger brands out there. So bringing in compassion is something we thought would be very interesting.
Like we spoke about, like it's not just about looking beautiful, but it's also feeling beautiful. And like we spoke that how it's not about feeling beautiful by just using the product, but by feeling beautiful by knowing the amount of people you've helped in the whole process. So just that whole human touch to the whole thing. So that should also be highlighted.
That's a very good angle, really good angle, and can be very impactful if done right. So good stuff, guys. Now think about what you can do if you put in some more efforts in your own particular brand's influencer marketing strategies. Okay. All right. Moving to the last group 4, guys.
Okay, maybe I'll just, sorry, Bhanu, you will take this up?
No, Pragya, please go ahead.
Okay, I'll just talk about maybe 1 or 2 ideas that I personally found interesting. One that came up was, it's an oral care brand, and we took Perfora as our sample set here. So, average price point of a toothbrush is around 1,200, 1,500. Of an electric toothbrush is 1,200, 1,500 rupees. So a point that came up in the group was, how could, from a social angle, how could you educate people that the lifetime of an electric toothbrush is 5 years. So how can you communicate that this is how much this toothbrush lasts you 5 years, and communicate around, if you were to use the disposable regular plastic toothbrush, this is the amount of, social debt, environmental debt kind of that you create. So taking it from that lens. The other thing that came up was also around,
how it can reduce the cost of dental care.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
create how we can educate people to have a dental habit, which we don't have in India as of now. Rarely people do twice. Very few people are there. So educating people that the product will help you keep you away from doctor. Basically, prevention is better than cure, kind of a stuff. What we brainstormed when we were discussing about the product. And yeah, so the campaigns that we discussed, and we think one is related to dental care, conscious dental care of prevention. So that would be one of our campaigns.
Yes. So I just we plot both of them. So on the educational, or rather, environmental debt bit. Now this is something that a lot of people, specifically in the Indian context, honestly do not care about. So it would be a Herculean task for you to actually educate them and tell them that this is something that you should be caring about. And while you're caring about something like this, you have to upgrade yourself, say from a 50 rupee toothbrush to a 1500 rupee toothbrush. That's a Herculean task, to be honest. Very, very difficult to do. But yeah, revolutionary to some extent, because it creates an entire new category. This category does not exist in Indian context at this point in time. So it definitely is something that would need a lot of thinking, a lot of planning, but can do wonders for the category. On the second bit, which is what you spoke about, now this is something that actually can work really well for this particular case, considering Indians are, cost sensitive at all cases. So if it's a very good thought of saying, if I can compare the cost that you already pay or would pay in the dental or the dentist expenses, you can kind of save all of that by staggering that cost over a period of time. So that's a good narrative, and while it's again slightly complex, but I'd still plot it in the simple category, with the entire reason being it's just a communication challenge. It's not something that you cannot deal with. But yeah, I am also skewed towards understanding the fact that this might take some time to build, some time to actually tell the world about, or rather tell Indians about the fact that this is something that you should go forward with. But this one actually is a pretty good thought. And considering you do not have this category as a very well built category, it can be a revolutionary thing for a product like this. Okay, now again, think about what can you done in this case. In this case, you can have finance influencers being involved, and that's something that nobody could have ever thought of. For a toothbrush, nobody would think I would need a finance influencer or somebody who talks about saving money to be speaking about my product. So that's a new category entirely that you're opening up to, right? You're also getting into something which is very different from the perspective of what the product does, right? So this one's actually a very good thought, and can be taken up. So yeah, great work there on this one specifically. Yeah. Okay, just being very mindful of the time, guys. We're already 6 minutes beyond what we are supposed to end the conversation at. But yeah, any question, any particular thing that you did not understand, anything you'd want me to deliberate or other detail down on, I'll just tell you what we have done today as an exercise, just kind of a summing up sort of thing. So we have gone slightly a step back in terms of saying we would want to do influencer marketing, and then not being able to understand what exactly do you need by that, and essentially then calling it as a fail because you do not know what is it that you're getting out of it. So we have gone a step back and tried to understand with these hypothetical examples what can be done. And again, some of the things which have come up are really good. So the last example, I really love this one. Yeah, opening up finance category influencers to oral category. That's something, honestly, I never thought of. So that's what you need to do before you get into, I want to do influencer marketing. Influencer marketing is essentially just getting people together and getting them to do something, to say something. Now, what is that something is actually more important than what you do with these guys. So when the what you want to say kind of gets defined, you already know the kind of people you would want, and you can then run forward with it, right? So that's where we are. I see a hand raised. Yeah, please go on if there's any question, by all means.
Yeah, I just one question. How do you measure the efficacy? Like, what are the few key metrics that you track to measure efficacy of an influencer campaign?
Right. So efficacy would generally depend on the objective that you had defined or would have defined in the first go. For example, in this case, when you're talking about education, right, efficacy would be mentioned or rather maintained or rather kind of talked about based on how many people you have educated around this particular piece, as compared to saying I want them to buy my product. See, eventually sales is something that all of us would kind of go for. That's the ultimate objective, right? But in this case, we understand that this category is such that right now sales would not happen. You have to first create the category slightly and then look for sales. So in this case, category creation or education would become your efficacy. So how many people have maybe enrolled to a particular course or something, hypothetically, say if you're educating about expenses, very off the cuff example, right? In this case, like I said, it can be a post campaign kind of survey which talks about how many people understand that this is transparent and this is actually happening, right? We trust this organization. So your efficacy would depend on what the outcome or rather what the objective was. Of course, you can couple this up with your usual metrics. So you can say, how many people we reached out to with this particular messaging? How many people have engaged with us? Like in this case, engagement becomes really important. How many people have actually engaged in this educational bit that you're doing? Okay, so that's where you would, or rather, that's how you would decide the efficacy. The metrics can vary.
Got it. And if I were to go for this example with a financial influencer, then is there a toolkit that you think of as how do I go about choosing these influencers? Is engagement rate the only key metric to look at, or is there something else?
So here, see, what you need to do is you need to think about people who have been educating around various modes of finances. Okay, those are the kind of guys you need to go with, right? Now, engagement rates. So how do you measure an engagement rate? Engagement rate is measured by how many people have, say, put a comment there, or have liked the content piece, or have done something else, right? Now you might not want them to do that. Maybe in all like this thing, you might want them to come to a separate platform and go through an entire series that you have created around this education. Maybe that's the objective. Now, in those cases, engagement rates are useless because you are making people jump from one platform to other. You don't want them to engage there on the very same content that this particular creator has created, right? So these are very custom driven examples where you have to decide what is the outcome and then accordingly come back and say, okay, if this is the outcome that I'm tracking, this is what I need as a metric for the influencers to be chosen upon. Right?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, we have some more hands raised.
Hi, so I had a practical question. So if we have gotten an influencer to create some great content for us, like for a new product or something, and then we want to use it for our ads, and sometimes like they have issues, and then they want to like take so much more money for us to use it on ads. But the thing is, that's also fine, but I don't even know if it'll work. So, at least in 2 weeks or something, then you can understand if it's working and if it's worth paying for. So like, what are your hacks, or how do people do it, where you want to actually blow stuff up. But obviously we don't have that kind of money that, we can get pay out everybody to be able to use them for ads. Because
Fair. The biggest hack here is to not, or rather to tell them upfront that the deal I'm doing is it would have the content rights being transferred to me, regardless of whether I use it on any particular ad or not. Okay, as compared to later on going to them and saying, oh, you've created a beautiful piece of content, I want to buy the rights now. Because that's when the creator would be, okay, they've already liked my content and they want to buy it, then why not, charge like literally high prices there. So as a metric or as a standard thumb rule, what we generally do at DYT is we get every creator to sign a contract upfront saying whatever content you're creating for the brand, the rights would automatically be transferred to the brand and they'd be allowed to use it literally across at any given place for any particular medium. Now, this might,
I can say some stuff like, oh no, you can't, and this and that, and I want to like get extra per month.
Yeah, so it's entirely because of the fact that when you engage with them initially, these terms are not made clear, and hence there's some ambiguity. And when you start running it on paid mediums, they'd come back and say, "Oh, I need more money for that." So if you made it clear on the very first day that this is what the deal is, you want to take it. You want to leave it. There are a lot of other people who can do this for me. Then it becomes entirely clear and absolutely transparent for you as a brand and for the creator as well. Yeah. All right, there's another raised hand here.
Yeah, hi Ankit. Actually, this is a perspective of a startup or perspective of a non-funded, limitation with the fund kind of companies. And at the same time, with the perspective what we had for the influencers to what we are experiencing now, there is a shift between that is what I understand also. So as a startup or as a non-limited fund kind of company, how is it that you think that we should be focusing towards the influencer marketing? And when it comes to creating a campaign and going about brand awareness and everything is fine, but in the end of the day it kind of gets lost. If you create a brand awareness and as a startup you don't have that infrastructure where you have a 360-degree performance marketing where you are remarketing with multiple channels and everything, and then your marketing campaign is great and all,
but you're not leveraging it. So we are not being able to leverage the influencer marketing rightly for a long-term purpose, as compared to what we before used to get the people to convert, right? Now we are more influencer marketing, in my understanding, is more about brand awareness or a campaign focused kind of thing, where you create a trend and then that kind of creates an engagement, and then you have that cycle of people coming to the website or a landing page and all those things. So what is it that you think would be the right thing to do as a startup, and what is it that you think, like, we should consider doing going forward in terms of the influencer marketing?
So Vishal, I'll ask you a question on this one, and then I'll answer your question.
Yeah.
Okay. Say
Sure.
we are good friends. We are very good friends. You tell me, yeah, meko na gaadi kharidni hai, which one should I buy? And I give you a reference. I tell you, yeah, Maruti is really good. Go for this particular car. Okay. Now, while I've given you the reference, I've taken you to the well. Okay. Whether you buy that car or not, it's entirely your choice. Correct. And that's the filter you would have to keep when you are speaking about influencer marketing as well. What influencers can do is they can tell people about your brand. They can tell them about the lovely stuff and the great stuff that you guys are doing. But eventually, if they're not buying for whatever reason, then it's up to them. Now, there can be 1,000 reasons why they're not buying. For example, your price point can be high. Or, for example, you might be reaching to the wrong target audience. You might be selling something to a person that, which he doesn't need at all, right? So what is more important in this case is to understand, if people are coming to that place and not buying, then what is the reason for them to not buy your stuff or not engage with you, correct? That's where we need to focus our energies, and then that might define a lot of things, and which is why we did this entire exercise today, where we said, let's understand the kind of people we want to target, the kind of communication we want to put out, and what is the outcome that we expect out of it. Okay, and then if that outcome is not coming, then we try to go deep and say, okay, why is that outcome not coming, right? So and also one more point that I want to kind of put across here is it is not a one-day job, guys. I mean, if you think that we'd have 100 people speaking about our brand today and suddenly our sales would grow by 100 times or whatever, 10 times, 20 times, that is not going to happen. Treat this as just another medium. They do not have a magic wand. It has to be over a period of time. So if over a period of time, Ankit speaks about a particular brand, say Ankit speaks about decaf. Again, same example I'm going back to. Ankit says, I'm a coffee addict. And just by the way, I mean, this is something that, I mean, who I am. So I'm giving you my exact story, okay? So if I say I'm a coffee addict and I've been having coffee and I've been having problems because I have coffee, empty stomach, and there are a lot of problems that I'm getting into, and suddenly one fine day I say, oh, I've got decaf and I'm trying this out, oh, it's really good. And then a week later I say, oh, I've been trying this for a week and I think a lot of, like 90% of the problems have gone away. And then maybe 10 days or 15 days from there, I say, okay, it's really a very, very good, healthier option. I never thought that I'd be able to do so many things. I've been like, whatever, going to the gym without any problems in the morning, blah, 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 blah. Then there's an authentic story which is coming out. It won't come out in one go. Say today I speak about decaf and say, oh, this is a great product, guys, please go ahead and buy it. Doesn't work like that, right? So you'll have to constantly, kind of nail that with your hammer again and again, the same communication, similar communication, and then see results coming in over a period of time as compared to saying, I do this today. I mean,
it's more like correct me if I'm wrong, it's more like a brand building channel for us than anything else, because it creates brand awareness, and then you create that funnel where you are retargeting them with multiple activities, and obviously the product should speak by itself. That is a one thing, but as a brand it should be more about in my understanding, influencer marketing has become more on that line.
So the first campaign would be brand building, no second thought about that. First campaign, you would create awareness, you would tell the world about your brand. But then later on, you start getting into that funnel. And then maybe tomorrow you would have parallel campaigns being run, wherein one campaign would still do awareness, would still get more and more people within the funnel. But then there would be that one last campaign where sales are happening as well. Where say you give custom coupon codes to your creators who have been with you for a while, and you say, okay, you have been with us for a while. Here's a coupon code for your community, and get them discounts, whatever, blah, 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 blah.
So programs and stuff,
correct. So the first campaign would definitely be a brand awareness and brand building campaign.
Got it. Thanks, Ankit.
Yeah. All right, guys.
Go on, Ankit. Sorry.
I'm saying I'm being supremely delayed, and I have another lecture just in 10 minutes from now. So
we'll take another 2 minutes, but first I want to take out this time to thank you. Please, I want to also summarize the reason we did this exercise is, first, if you realize it is not an exercise which can be done individually. So when you work with peers across and you come up with new ideas, this is something which I would say, take this framework and then go and apply this to your company with your team, right? More importantly, having done this, you sort of get an idea that we all think, right, we want to do influencer marketing karna hai, right? But क्यों करना है और कैसे करना है is sort of why I think I would summarize why this sort of exercise is super critical, right? And then the other part also I would like to give a plug is, we've gotten the idea of क्यों करना है कैसे करना है, and if you want to see a case study for brand, we'll be covering one on Vadam, where their leverage influence is very, very strongly. So the CMO of Vadam will be coming in a future session. But that being said, Ankit, like I said, has been an expert on this front entirely. First, he has been taking more, of his time out for us to educate and run this session as interactively for us. So I want to first, thank him. And Ankit, we basically do something very simple. It is basically a way of us to tell thank you. So we basically turn on our cameras. So everyone who can please do turn on the cameras. We put our hands in front. We unmute ourselves. Sorry, unmute first. Unmute, and then we do a countdown. So Ankit, you want to join us? You can. We just put out our hands in front, and we do a countdown between 3 to 1, and then we just say voting. Okay. That being said, ready? 3, 2, 1. Voting. Thank you so much, Ankit.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys. If there are more questions, let me know. Okay. You can speak with Sharat, and he can kind of pass those on to me. But yeah, thank you so much. Have a good one.
We'll be sharing Ankit's details also. So you want to contact him one-to-one, please do. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Sharat. Take care. Bye.